Welcome to Talkback. I'm Ishar Aluwalia. In this series of programs, I will be discussing the impact of the World Trade Organization agreements on the Indian economy with economists, scientists, industrialists, and policymakers. Today, the topic of our discussion is the trade-related intellectual property rights regime under the WTO. Let us first take an overview.
Intellectual property rights are intangible rights an owner has over his or her creations, inventions, and ideas. The Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, or TRIPS, is now part of the World Trade Organization regime. There are 8 areas of intellectual property rights, or IPRs, covered by TRIPS: patents, plant variety protection, copyrights, trademarks, geographical indications, industrial designs, layouts for integrated circuitry, and undisclosed information. India had a system of process patents. These protected only the process by which the product was made. In the case of pharmaceuticals, for instance, anyone could reproduce that product at a cheaper price by using a slightly different process in its manufacture. India amended its Patent Act in 1995. We now have a system of process and product patents for all products for a 20-year period. Process patenting will take effect from January 2005. Perhaps the most important area of concern is genetic resources. The Patent Act of 1995 brings all biotechnological inventions and eligible microorganisms under its ambit. However, plants and animals themselves are not covered by patents. Thus, neem, turmeric, basmati rice, jeera seeds, karela, brinjal, and some of their properties were patented by multinational firms, although they are indigenous to India. Patenting of germplasm for seeds is an area of major concern for farmers of developing countries who may lose their access to native genetic resources. In India, a draft Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Bill is being debated to address these concerns. While stronger IPR protection should increase incentives for innovation, it would also raise the cost of acquiring new technology, thereby slowing down the process of technology diffusion. The debate goes on.
The most controversial area under TRIPS have been pharmaceuticals and agriculture. To throw more light on this subject, let us turn to our guests. I have here Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, one of our most respected scientists in the country and currently head of the CSIR. Dr. Mashelkar has many credits, but one of the things he's most known for is the fact that I can say proudly he was elected Fellow of the Royal Society. I also have with me here another very distinguished guest, Mr. Muchkund Dubey, former Foreign Secretary and current President of the Council of Social Development. Mr. Dubey is highly respected in the country for his thinking and articulation of the views of developing countries when it comes to analyzing global economic developments. Welcome. Muchkund, if I were to put a very simple question to you, would you say that under the new intellectual property rights regime that we have, it is going to be much more difficult and much less affordable for an average Indian to have access to essential medicines?
Yeah, that's very true, because most of the life-saving drugs are under patent, and they are likely to be in patent in future also. Indian pharmaceutical firms used to produce the same drugs by using different processes, which is called reverse engineering, or some people would call it pirating, and used to make those drugs available at prices which were 1/30th, sometimes 1/60th of the prices prevailing in the markets of the developed countries. Once the process patent only regime for drugs is done away with and the product patent is introduced, then these drugs we will have to import from these companies, or to the extent that they agree to produce it, if they have incentive to do it in the country. And I think that one immediate result of that would be a sharp increase in the prices.
Would you not say, Dr. Mashelkar, that we have both the WHO, which has produced a list of essential medicines, and then in our own country, the government has a list of essential medicines. And to my knowledge, there is no patented drug which forms part of that.
I remember the 1998 statistics, only 2 drugs were under patent, and those also are out of patent at the moment. And at least the 1998 figures were that the production based on those 2 drugs was about 7 crore or something of that order. The other issue is that there are something like 20 to 25 new drugs that come in every year around the world, basically, but at the same time, similar number go off patent, basically. So there is some internal equilibrium and balancing. Equally importantly, there is an alternative that is always available. There is such a competition, for instance. I mean, if one is prescribing ciprofloxacin, there is an alternative of chloramphenicol or tetracycline and so on and so forth. That means these alternatives will always be available. India has an enormous advantage because of its intellectual infrastructure, our strong research and development capacity. We are taking advantage of the fact that the cost of research in India is very low. I mean, let's not forget that last year the research and development budget of entire India was $4 billion. Space, defense, atomic energy, everything. The budget of one company, Siemens, was $5 billion. And you can see what we are doing. So that tremendous cost advantage that we have, we must leverage. So I think if we strategize properly, we can basically make it. The only thing is that we cannot run the entire mile on our own, because when you move from mine to marketplace, the costs are very high, $400, $500 million, which we don't have. But on the other hand, by participating in that innovation process and forging partnerships, we can do it.
Mujkund, do we have some instruments by which we can ensure that there is technology diffusion, that we are, patents don't amount to just protecting technology?
The most effective instrument to do something about that is the system of compulsory licensing. And compulsory licensing basically means that if the patent holder does not make the commodity drug available in sufficient quantity on a continuing basis, or does not manufacture it in the country for a long period of time, the government has the right to give license to others, including the patent holder, to produce in the country.
Don't you think, Dr. Mashelkar, that a lot of the R&D in the developed world is going into research on like old age diseases, whereas our diseases really are age-old diseases, I would say. And is there not enough room for us to work on, medicines for dysentery, cholera, TB and all? Or is there really as much of a conflict as is being projected today?
You are absolutely right. I mean, the Western world will work on the diseases of the Western world, of the diseases of the Western society, whether it is cancer or coronary problems or aging and so on. Nobody is going to work on malaria, filaria and so on and so forth. These are our problems. And that is precisely why we need to create a strong research and development infrastructure, particularly our publicly funded R&D institutions. They need to work. I mean, I'll give you an example since you talked about, let's say, malaria. It was our Central Drug Research Institute which developed Artethar, which is the only drug that is available on cerebral malaria today.
I see.
Essentially, it is being marketed, it is being used around the country. In fact, the Prime Minister launched it last year. And the new drug that has entered, Ablaquine, for instance, once again, CDRI, Nicholas Piramla are going to do that. They invested heavily in that, basically. So I do feel that the tremendous intellectual infrastructure that we have created in the country, if we use it intelligently, and particularly with the kind of support the government is now providing through this, it is possible.
But Dr. Mashelkar, is the government really providing the kind of support that is needed if our knowledge industry is to be competitive in the world? Because I understand that we still have not really got a state-of-the-art patent office in the country. So on the one hand, we say, yes, we have the ability to create knowledge, but then people are going from pillar to post in order to get their, product patented. What would you say, Muskun? Would you share this perception?
Yes, I entirely share that perception. And I think that some of the basic infrastructure and institutional mechanism that had to be created has not been created, and whatever has been done is not adequate. And we already have had 5 years, and we have just about 2-3 years more to go before we are required to implement the TRIPS agreement fully. And if we don't implement, then we can be dragged to dispute settlement mechanism.
There is a lot of apprehension about the fact that, we have such tremendous heritage in the country. We have the whole Ayurveda heritage, homeopathy, all these alternative systems of medicine, and we don't have the capability and the infrastructure to patent these. And what is going to happen, people feel, is that the multinational corporations are going to come and they're going to use their resources to patent our material, and then we will have to pay a higher price for that. What would you say to that?
I think let us talk about the perception and the reality. The perception is neem is being patented, turmeric is being patented, and so on and so forth. Nothing like that. Because no natural product as such can be patented. Patent has to have this basic criteria of novelty, non-obviousness, and utility. I think the basic issue is really that we have to create databases on what we have. We just can't keep that knowledge up here or in some buried books, basically. But in databases that are accessible to the whole world, including the patent offices, so that they know that we have the rights on this. I think that is the criteria.
No, I must say this, your winning of the neem patent was a major morale booster.
Yeah.
Today, while it is true that we have won some of these battles, the fear is that we still don't have all that is needed to make our indigenous systems of medicine really patentable. Would you agree with that?
No, I agree with that, and I would agree with Dr. Mashelkar that we need to have an inventory of what we really have, and to collect all the material relating to that so that it can be used in any court of appeal where we have to go to protect our interest. But TRIPS agreement is under review, and we have a few things which were not envisaged at that time, and which we should bring up. And one of them I would say that, for example, regarding geographical names, the TRIPS agreement provides a higher intellectual property level for spirits and wines, but it doesn't make such provision for other geographical names.
Like basmati for us.
So this is one of the obvious things that we should press for. The second thing that we should press for is how do we exercise our rights under the Biodiversity Convention in the revision of the TRIPS agreement. And there are two issues I will just mention very briefly. One is that to recognize the right of the community who have the knowledge of the traditional things. And second, of course, is that paying compensation to the farmers who have brought these plants to the present stage of development.
Yeah. Thank you, Muskun. We will be discussing this and more in the second half of the program. Stay with us. We will just take a short break. Thank you.
किसान लोगों के मन के सवाल समय से ट्रेन का चलाना और सुरक्षित चलाना, आयात की जरूरत भी न रहे और हम निर्यातक बन हार्ट अटैक जो है कभी भी हो सकते। तंबाकू पैदा करेगा सीधे सीधे कैंसर, ये तो पता नहीं कहाँ से ये पूर्व के रूप में हमारे समाज में आ गया। निशान आम जनता की जिज्ञासा, जब मैं अपने ऑडियंस को देखता हूँ तो इसी वजह से देखता हूँ कि वो भी मैं हूँ, मैं वो भी। इट्स फॉर यू टू डिसाइड कि क्या चीज एक्सेप्ट करनी क्या। आर्टिस्ट वो लोग बनते हैं जिनको ड्रॉ करना नहीं आता। सेक्स जो है वो असलियत है। निशान हर मंगलवार रात 8:02 पे टीवी न्यूज चैनल पर।
Welcome back. We are joined in this part of the program by Dr. Suman Sahai, President, Gene Campaign. Dr. Sahai has been a very effective scientific voice in favor of farmers' rights and community rights. Suman, welcome to this program. Tell me, how does TRIPS, the trade-related intellectual property regime, affect the farmer's ability to buy seeds and use these seeds for further cultivation?
The TRIPS demands of member states that they should provide a legislative system to protect the rights of breeders of new seeds. So it does not restrict the right of the farmer to buy seeds, but what it does very severely restrict is the right of the farmer to function as a seed producer himself. This assumes tremendous significance in a country like India, where the largest amount of the seed produced for our annual consumption, as much as 85%, 87% by some estimates, is produced by the farming community, because we don't have the corporate sector in main food seed. And therefore you could say that India's largest largest seed industry is the farming community. And if you place restrictions on what the farmer can do with a variety, like maybe the farmer can save seed for himself, maybe the farmer can produce seed for others, these are the kind of requirements that are there in TRIPS, which would restrict the right of the farmer to function as India's largest seed industry. But, if I may just continue on that, happily, the Indian legislation that is being drafted, the Plant Variety Protection and Farmers' Rights Act, because it has been referred to a parliamentary committee, because several people, experts from within government and without, have been invited to give views, I must say that this draft legislation is moving in the right direction. And our earlier concerns, and Jean Campaign had several concerns on farmers' rights, these are being addressed. Now we will wait and see what is there in the final form, but I think the crux is the farmer must retain the right to sell seed, even seed of protected variety.
So that's very good news.
Yes,
that
it is.
there was tremendous apprehension a few years ago.
Yes.
And what you are saying is that we have made some progress in the right direction. Another area that you have been very vocal about is the community rights question. And Dr. Mashelkar, earlier on in the program, we were talking about community rights and people's knowledge. And I believe that there have been some very significant developments in recent months, not only in India, but even in developed countries. I'd like you to tell us more about what has happened in this area.
Yes, and I'll do so very happily, because it all begins with this very small step India had taken on challenging that particular turmeric patent.
Right.
You'll recollect that the use of turmeric for wound healing has been known in India for centuries.
Right.
And yet one fine day one found that there was a US patent that was granted on that. And it was CSIR which decided to challenge it. And I'm very happy to say that after 14 months, the US Patent Office revoked that patent.
And that changed the mood in the country.
That changed the mood in the country, because what happened was, the feeling was anybody can come and take away our knowledge and put a right on it, but this proved that that is not so. It also showed that there is a system that basically worked. It gave us a new confidence. And also the more important battles, because turmeric was symbolic, where the more important was basmati, where our exports would have been affected and so on. And I'll come back to that. But the issue is that after this particular patent was revoked, there have been other good developments, like the neem patent, for which there was a fight that was going on. 12 organizations had put a fight for about 5 years. In the European Patent Office, that was revoked around 2 to 3 months ago. And there was another development. It's not only India's problem, by the way. There were 400 tribes in Amazon. They were using a particular plant called ayahuasca for certain purposes. And again, there was a wrong US patent. That was challenged by them, citing the turmeric case. And I'm very happy that that was also revoked. So what has happened is that it's not only the developing world. In the developed world also, there is a more awareness now. And I'm very happy to say that the government of India, particularly the Department of Indian System of Medicine and Homeopathy, led by Shailaja Chandra, has taken this particular initiative to create what is called as a traditional knowledge digital library. So what will happen? All this knowledge, which is buried now in Sanskrit texts here or there, etc., that will get converted into a digital library.
Years to do
No, what we are doing is the 80-20 rule always applies. That if 80% of the patents are given on 20% of the plants and remedies. So we are picking up those first, which will solve the major problem. And I think within less than a year, that library is being put together.
Suman, do you share that optimism?
Yes, I think the setting up databases is a very important step, but I would like to introduce a word of caution. The way that WIPO is going ahead with the database treaty, we'll have to be very careful about protecting this database. WIPO is the UN body which looks after world intellectual property rights. Correct. So this has been dealt with, all patents and copyrights, etc., all these intellectual property right things has been dealt in WIPO so far, till it was moved into TRIPS because of a very aggressive stance in the WTO. But WIPO is trying to reclaim that ground. And in the WIPO, a treaty is being discussed, an international treaty, which will govern databases, all compilations of knowledge, like Dr. Mashelkar was saying, and in all fields. And all developing countries would be much happier if intellectual property rights would be with the UN organization like WIPO rather than with WTO.
But it's unrealistic.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the way that it is developing, WIPO is trying, and I think successfully trying, and it would be in our interest,
Of course,
to strengthen that kind of
I would agree.
What has been completely neglected in this international discussion is that there's a whole body of knowledge that communities have, the indigenous knowledge, the traditional knowledge. What is at the basis of a lot of biopiracy? Now, whether it is intended biopiracy or accidental biopiracy is a different matter. But the fact that this indigenous knowledge is a big money spinner. It is because wound healing properties exist in turmeric and communities have that knowledge that somebody thought to patent it.
How do you formalize a system?
And what is really the onus on developing countries today is to start thinking afresh and creatively to create instruments of protection. Like you have a patent for the industrial sector, create instruments like that that would protect indigenous knowledge. Because indigenous knowledge is not held by one person, it's by communities. It has been created over a period of time rather than just one single invention. So the whole invention in this formal sector of industrial properties, which is protected by patents, is a completely different system.
Can you give some example of what kinds of protection you can have for community knowledge?
Well, there are several alternative ways of basically doing it, but the principal point is the patent system, which originated to patent, let us say, industrial property, just by a design on a paper, drawing on a paper, you could protect it, is no more valid if Michael Jackson is going to use, let us say, an African tune in his song. Who originated that? And what is the compensation that is being given? Small experiments are beginning to take place, by the way, very quickly. In a minute, I'll tell you about an experiment that was done in India. For instance, Dr. Pushpangaram, who is now the director of National Botanical Research Institute, when he was in Kerala, when they went to a Kani tribe, they found that there was what was called as Arogyapacha, a plant which the tribes used to eat and they wouldn't feel hungry throughout the day.
Yes.
So he said, what is this? They collected it, created a product called Jivani out of it, started commercializing it. But what they did was important, that they recognized that the knowledge came from the tribes. And therefore, they created a trust in which 50% of the royalties that they got were put in for the benefit of the tribes. I mean, these are new models that are emerging. So it is a question of material transfer agreements, access to information as well as material, and compensation. These are small examples. I think we need to, that's what Suman is saying, I'm saying, we need to create
So
a system.
would you say, Suman, that like if our biodiversity is being threatened, if we feel that our biological material is going to be, taken away by the multinational corporations, they come and they patent it, and then we have to pay a heavy price to reclaim it, would you say that some kind of a system can be set up where we charge royalties in case, they have access to that? Because it does, you also have to remember that if there is a lot of foreign investment that comes in to explore these possibilities, and if we don't have funds, should we set up regulatory systems where we can use the investments to really exploit the potential, but make sure that our biodiversity is not threatened? Or should we just shun foreign investment from this area? What would you say?
I don't think that the question is that of shunning or accepting foreign investment. I think you'll have to tackle this both at the national level through domestic legislation, where you will have to put protective measures like what can be used, what cannot be used. This is already part of the Biodiversity Act. And you will have to lobby and negotiate internationally. I must add here that again, our own Biodiversity Act has attempted to be proactive in this case, to say that this knowledge should be used sustainably and equitably. There is a concept of benefit sharing, that royalties will have to be paid. And there is a National Biodiversity Authority in which Adivasis and farming communities will directly be members so as to safeguard their interests directly. And that this kind of question of whether it will be patented or not will be decided by the authority. What sort of royalties will be paid will be decided by the authority. So the concept that you're raising is actually coming into being.
But Suman, it is one thing to say that we need legislation to address these very genuine issues, and we are moving in the direction of getting the right legislation, but it also requires an enforcement machinery, and it requires a mindset. Would you say that we've created that mindset?
We need a lot of awareness generation. And I'll
Yes.
give you an example of where you'll run into problems. In India and in many communities in old civilizations, communities don't have the concept of exclusive ownership. There is always willingness to share. I think the dilemma is to retain the kind of nobility that communities have,
Exactly.
but still protect their interests in the sense of providing the kind of legislative framework. But I must say that no enforcement of any law is possible unless you have massive awareness generation.
Do you think, Dr. Mashelkar, that our IT enthusiasm can really be applied in this area?
IT has the power to reach the unreached. The central issue is like this. India is being described as a rich country where poor people live. What is our richness due to? Our rich biodiversity, our traditional knowledge, our enterprise, our culture, our heritage, and so on. It has the potential to create wealth through the process of innovation. Converting knowledge into wealth and social good through the process of innovation is the challenge.
So you believe we can export knowledge?
Absolutely,
without a doubt.
absolutely, no doubt at all, and that is beginning to happen. A village in Gujarat, for instance, is Craft. He's on craftbridge.com, which was put by NIT, and an American is having an access to it, and he's deciding the design, the weave, and the fabric, and it is getting connected. And it's a question of using modern tools, namely information technology, modern biotechnology, put it all together, basically. To me, this is a huge opportunity. And the second point is that we keep on talking about biopiracy. Biopiracy does not necessarily take place between India and the Western world. It takes place right here.
Yes.
Some of our laboratories might take things from our people without returning anything. And therefore, not biopiracy, but biopartnership, I think should be the signal that we should be sending.
Biopartnership.
Yes.
Very good. We really need to work both on the infrastructure front and on awareness front. So I really must thank you for sharing your perceptions with us. Thank you.